Great to sit down with you again, Gabby. It's been a fair while since we spoke, and you've obviously been at Forbes Solicitors for over a year now, haven't you?
Yeah, coming up, be actually 2 years soon. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Blimey. And obviously interesting times for you in looking after employment law and the like, especially with the changing government. A lot of significant changes to employment law. What have you found to be feedback from clients in terms of the unclear legislation and laws that the new government might bring in?
Yeah, it's interesting times. I think with the prospect of a Labour government coming up, we did a lot of work looking into what their previous manifestos and white papers were, and we could see right from the get-go that there was going to be some significant priorities that they were going to put on people, employees, and the world of work, and that is what they've tabled. Quite a few of our clients within the sort of building and construction sectors, I wouldn't say they're concerned, but there's a degree of uncertainty about what it's going to look like and what they're going to have to do, or any changes and what the implications might be.
Yeah, and it's uncertain times now anyway, isn't it? Given the economic uncertainty, so this further sort of compounds those issues, and people not really knowing where they're heading.
Yeah, and I think some of the bill that the new government have put forward, there will be some significant change, certainly within day one employment rights potentially, which is a big change from the 2 years that we've got currently. Although back in the day it was a year, so it's not out with the realms of possibility that that people will remember that when it was a year, but there will be some changes that organisations need to make, and certainly have a look and a review of what processes they've currently got. That would be my advice, really, is to just do a bit of a deep dive, bit of a review or an audit of what you've currently got in place in terms of probationary periods, because that will be really important to monitor and look at those properly for any new starters.
It's a huge change potentially, and 0 hours contracts, etc. They're looking to potentially abolish those, is my understanding.
Yeah, there's a catch out word, which is exploitative 0 hours contracts. That's what they're looking to remove. And I know from our clients within the construction sector, and certainly some building contractors, they employ a lot of seasonal workers.
Yeah.
And some of those may be on 0 hours, certainly within the summer months. So I don't think, it isn't the plan to get rid of them completely, but it's looking at putting some rules and regulations in to legislate around potential employers who do bend the rules a little bit around the requirements. So it's that catch out word of exploitative 0 hours contracts and what that looks like.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. And I think you mentioned before around employers' duties on third-party sexual harassment as well. What's involved around that?
Yeah, so there's some changes. It had been proposed a while ago by the Conservative government, but not followed through. So it's the duty of an employer to basically prevent sexual harassment by a third party. So that is potentially a contractor coming in to an organisation or doing some work on someone's premises, and the employees and employer within that company has to try and regulate and legislate to make sure that their employees aren't then harassed by someone coming in. So we could be looking to see what rules and regulations on contracting terms that contractors or organisations are asked to sign who do send workers out, to guide and legislate around what training and development they've done for their staff.
Yeah, I mean, certainly prevalent within purely construction, building product firms as well, that have that element of installing their product. Again, they've got to be made very aware of that, because there's a lot of third-party subcontract, etc., isn't there? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nothing out with the realms of what firms and organisations should be doing anyway.
No.
Certainly in terms of best practice, but with other priorities and day-to-day work that they've got to focus on, it can take a back burner. But our advice would be, just review what processes you've got, what training and development you're doing with your staff, and maybe look to refresh that.
Yeah, yeah. And you pointed, I saw an article that you posted out on LinkedIn around the CIPD's recent summer report, alluding to 37% of companies, and I think that figure's actually higher within construction and building products.
Mm-hmm.
Firms are alluding to the fact that they're finding it difficult to recruit, hard to find skills, be it at whatever level. Can you expand on that at all?
Yeah, so that's, another thing for organisations to be concerned about is the whole recruitment piece. And while it's certainly better than it was in the last few sort of 2 to 3 years, it's not as high. The CIPD summer report published that there are firms and organisations still struggling. And although it's come down, it's about looking at your offer as an employer, and is it recruitment, is it retention? The ongoing question of your priorities as an organisation, and looking at the role and why that vacancy's occurred, and looking at, if you have a hard to fill vacancy, what are you doing differently to try and fill it?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Gabby, in terms of too many firms don't actually focus and look at, okay, so we've lost this position or elements of these positions over the course of the last 5 years or so. What's the why? Why are we losing these skills? And also, in looking to retain staff, well, sort of attract staff and then retain staff, what's our employer brand? It's a bit of a buzzword, but in actual fact, when you really sit down and work out, well, what's our history? What's our story? Where are we looking to get to? And how do we attract candidates against that, rather than, I don't know, throw in an extra 15% salary increase just to get someone to plug a hole?
Yeah. The raising the salary is an interesting point, because a lot of organisations will naturally gravitate to that. Oh, we can't fill, let's up the salary, and that's not always the right way. It might be the hook that someone sees the job advert and thinks, oh, that's, that salary looks good, but any job seeker these days is going to do a bit of due diligence on the organisation, and they want more than salary. A salary might get them through the door, but it's not going to keep them longer term. And length of service is coming down on average, a lot more. We're around 3-4 years average length of service for an employee, but it's what you can do for that employee during that life of their career with you. That's what a job seeker wants. Certainly, from the Gen Zs and the millennials of this world, they don't just want salary.
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, quite often I get pushed back naturally in my role. Candidate A hasn't got the tenure that we're looking for. Well, the candidate with the tenure you're looking for invariably has worked at that employer for that period of time, because of that employer's been able to satisfy less so the money, but the aspirations of that individual, whatever those aspirations may be. So you've got to be able to get that across. I would agree. And I understand from Forbes Solicitors' perspective, you're offering, especially SMEs, but any business within construction and building products, a free HR health check. What does that involve?
Yeah, so it's something that HR Consultancy, which is the part of Forbes, an employment team that I work with, it's an aid to clients who are maybe of a certain size, but they don't have a huge HR team or a huge team to be able to concentrate on reviews and looking at their policies and processes. So what our offer is an initial short health check or audit on HR policies, procedures, and maybe some of the best practice around people. Talking to them about where are their goals for the next 5 years. If it's growth, well, we'll review some of their practices around that to say, well, our advice would be this is what you should be looking at, to be able to help that happen. And we'll obviously create a report, a bit of some recommendations, and then we can have discussions about how we, as an HR consultancy team, can help them.
Right, okay. And I see that no end within my area of expertise, building products and construction. A lot of smaller firms that have maybe one dedicated HR person, or in actual fact outsource it, or it may be the finance director that has a bit of a dual role looking after HR whilst outsourcing an element of the legal side. And yeah, the ever-changing landscape of employment law and retention of staff, it's an absolute minefield, isn't it? So I can understand why that would be of value to people.
Yeah, and some of the things that we've talked about today, they're all on the priority list. You know, changes to legislation, recruitment, contracting, workers' rights, employee engagement, employer branding. It's a lot to do. So we can help to offer some additional resource.
Yeah, no, fascinating. I can understand why that's much needed. Well, it's great to catch up with you, Gabby. I very much appreciate your time, and no doubt we'll speak soon.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Gabby.